Most people overpay for car insurance, not because they're careless, but because switching feels like too much hassle. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry compares rates side by side from over 50 top insurers and helps you switch with ease. Jerry even tracks market rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Switch with confidence. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/Libsyn today. That's JERRY.ai/LIBSYN.
Welcome to the Sentimental Gardener podcast. I'm Cass Dowding, and while this is a gardening podcast, we don't just focus on tips and advice. Instead, we talk about the memories and personal stories behind the plants people love and the gardens they create. You know, some gardens we visit once and remember for a lifetime. Others are with us from the start, and we don't really visit them, we just grow up inside them. That's something my guest today knows so well. Hayden Schueler runs Vereya Gardening in the Dandenong Ranges, and when we talk about connection to place, this is someone who now lives just over the fence from the house he grew up in, on land that used to be an old hydrangea farm where he played as a child, climbing trees and collecting chestnuts. His story feels like one of those perfectly circular garden paths that lead you right back to where you began. Today, Hayden looks after gardens across the hills, which is quite the plot twist from his days at the Victorian College of Arts studying music composition. When he talks about this journey, there's a beautiful honesty to it. It's like my life just got written for me, he shares in one part. And I should mention, Hayden hasn't completely left his musical roots behind. At the end of our conversation today, keep listening as he plays the theme music he composed specifically for this podcast on his grand piano at home. A moment where his two worlds of gardening and music intertwine. So, welcome to the very first episode of the Sentimental Gardener podcast, and a big welcome to my guest today, Hayden Schueler. So, Hayden, you run your own business doing gardening maintenance, and you're based up here in the Dandenong Ranges. And did you grow up here in the Dandenong Ranges?
I grew up in the house behind where I live currently, so I haven't moved very far.
So cool. So yeah, you've literally moved over the fence.
Basically moved over the fence. Yeah. I did live in a couple of places before landing here, but yeah, I've been sort of where I am for probably close to 10 years now. And yeah, I love the area and love working up here.
It is a beautiful spot, isn't it? Could you share some of your early memories of gardens up here in the Dandenongs?
When I think about gardens growing up, I guess I think about gardens at home. So my parents' garden, they've got quite a nice garden, and it's one of those properties that, you know, they bought the house because of the garden. And I think a lot of properties up here are like that. People buy up here for the gardens, and the house is just, it's where they live, but the garden is what, you know, really makes it. And so they had a nice garden, and it was great to grow up running around and playing amok in that garden. Lots of, you know, different rooms and areas, and funnily enough, the property that I'm at now was just an empty block.
Oh, wow.
There was no house here or anything. There wasn't even a driveway on it. It was just it used to be a hydrangea farm.
Oh, right.
And, you know, years and years and years ago. And, you know, we used to jump the fence and sort of play in this property as well.
Wow.
So it's funny that I'm now living here. and it does feel a bit sentimental, this place, because of that. And we've got 2 big chestnut trees, and Mum and Dad also have a chestnut tree. And when I was a kid, I used to, you know, collect all the chestnuts, you know, jump over here because no one else was here, you know. So jump the fence, collect all the chestnuts, and, you know, I'm still collecting the chestnuts.
Yeah, I saw recently you were posting about different ways to cook them, and that's so amazing. It's a big tree. I saw it as I drove up.
Yeah. So we've got one at the front, one at the back. It's hard to get chestnuts now because of the cockatoos, which just decimate them. They just come in flocks. And they never used to be that bad. Like, you know, when I was growing up, even when I first moved here, the back chestnut tree never got touched by the cockatoos. And we used to get buckets and buckets and buckets of chestnuts. And now it's only the very low branches that I can somehow, protect, and they're the last to get eaten. Last year we got none at all, and this year we got some.
None?
None.
Wow.
None.
They're very hungry cockatoos. That's fascinating that, you have memories of being on this property as a kid, but now also as an adult. And do you ever have that experience, like you see something as an adult and you go, oh, it's actually not as big? Like, did it feel bigger, the space, as a kid, or because it was a hydrangea farm, it's all changed? Or,
it's all completely changed because there was so much rubbish on this block.
Okay.
It was just, yes, it used to be a hydrangea farm, but over the years it had just become derelict and full of blackberries and sycamores and random trees and piles of rubbish, and it was wild. Yeah, I think when the people before us bought the block, they would have just got a bobcat in and just kind of cleared heaps of it.
So your parents' garden, you were saying, had lots of rooms in it, and were they quite hands-on in the garden, like with shaping it and designing it, or was it quite established? Like, what sort of things did they add to it?
It was quite established already. Apparently it was first established by, I can't remember the person's name, someone who ran the Ferny Creek Horticultural Society, way back in the day, like in the 1960s.
Oh, wow.
And so it's established with, really nice, camellias and azaleas and just beautiful trees and areas. It was really well landscaped and thought out, old stone walls and this sort of thing. That. So it was really nice. So in terms of what Mum and Dad sort of put in, probably not a huge amount, but it was already pretty special. Yeah, they just sort of maintained it, So growing up, I probably didn't do too much to help with the maintenance. Maybe I'd mow the lawns sometimes or that sort of thing. For some reason, pruning and shaping fascinated me.
Oh, wow.
When I was really young. And I don't know what it was, but for some reason, I just had this urge to get some shears and just cut.
Yeah. That's so funny. How did you go? Were they nice and curved and uniform, or were you just out there
having... I was really young.
Yeah.
I was really young. But I found it really fun.
Oh, right.
I found it fun.
Yeah.
And I remember asking Mum if I could prune the hydrangeas, and it was, winter, and she thought, great, yeah, go out and prune the hydrangeas. But I was really young and I didn't know what the hydrangeas were.
Okay.
I just called... It ended up being azaleas I wanted to prune, but I just called them hydrangeas. So I got out to the shed and got the shears and just started trimming all the azaleas, which were, all about to flower.
Yeah.
And Mum came out and was horrified at what I'd done.
Oh, no. Oh, what a funny story.
Yeah, but I think I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so you found your calling very early on. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
That it was just something about them. And so going from growing up surrounded by gardens, did that lead you to go and want to study gardens or work in gardens? What's that transition between being a kid up here in the Dandenongs and then, running your own gardening business now? When
I was a teenager, I started just working in people's gardens up on the hill. Just, friends, people we knew. Who just needed a bit of a hand in the garden because all the gardens are quite large up here and everyone needs a bit of help from time to time. Yeah, when I was probably 15 or 14 even, just started just helping people in the garden just for a bit of money. I guess I saw garden work as, as a way to make money when I was younger.
Did you have any formal training in horticulture or managing gardens?
So because of the area I live in and how long I've been just gardening for, I never went and did a, formal training. And one of the reasons was because I had just done a music degree and I was working gardening on the side of that. I just had work already.
Yeah.
And once I finished my music degree, I didn't really feel like going and doing another course. I did think about it and I just couldn't bring myself to, doing more assignments and essays, and just the thought of it I think I was done. I went straight from school to uni and by that time I was just done with that for now. It's not to say that one day I might do something like that if I get the time, or even, slightly different, like maybe in design or, just some sort of avenue. That could be a possibility for me one day. But I just had work up here, and I've learnt from my customers. I've learnt from just being curious about things and researching. And if there's something I don't know, I just look it up straight away. I'm always looking up plants and, I'm interested in different ways of doing things. So I think if you're just curious, you just sort of learn as you go and be respectful to people in their gardens. And you can't go too wrong if you're interested enough.
So you've studied a music degree.
So I studied music composition at VCA.
Which is quite a, prestigious course really, isn't it?
It was at the time. It was hard to get into.
Yeah.
There was only 7 of us that got in that year. And that was the last year they ran that course. So by the time we got to third year, there was no one below us. Mm-hmm. We were the last. And then after that, it transitioned to Melbourne Uni.
Okay.
After that. So it was. And I worked hard to get into that course because I really wanted to, and I wanted to write music. I wanted to be in bands and write songs. I liked writing orchestral music too. I wanted to write for films and documentaries and all this sort of thing. And after uni, that was something that I tried to do, but it is very hard and competitive. And to be honest, the gardening business has picked up so much quicker. Once I had more time for gardening, I just got so much more work. I was just in it. Mm-hmm. It's like, my life just got written for me in that moment. It just happened. And it felt really wrong at the time because my whole life I was doing music, and that was something that I thought that was what I was destined to do. And the fact I was spending so much time gardening and also really enjoying it felt wrong. And I remember this moment, I did just feel like I called myself a closet gardener because I just had this pull between, music and gardening, and like everyone thought I was a musician, but I just loved gardening.
That's so funny. Hayden the closet gardener. Well, you've been really successful in it, haven't you? But I get that. I get that tension because I grew up thinking I was destined to be a ballerina.
Yep.
And spent 6 days a week dancing and my whole life, and then an injury cut that short. But also, it's that the prestigiousness of only a couple ever make it a career, and you spend your whole adolescent or life and I suppose passion following something. And then, like you said, it gets written for you almost. And there is that point. But it's awesome that you had something that you were just as passionate about. Yeah. And I'm so happy that that's worked out for you.
Yeah, I think it surprised me how much I, enjoyed gardening. I think a big part of it too was I like physical work, and I like being outside, and I like doing things. I feel it's better for my body to be working than being inside and sitting down all the time. Yeah. I could never do an office job. Yeah, that just really appealed to me. So, and, there's a lot of musicians that do enjoy gardening, and there's a lot of musicians that don't enjoy gardening too. And I think if you're inclined to enjoy physical work, or I think if you're a gardener, if you're a musician, you quite like gardening as well. I feel like there is a bit of a something that draws both fields together.
I've recently discovered a horticulturalist from the UK called Nigel Dunnett, and he is, I think, a professor at Sheffield University. And what I loved about his books or the writing I've read is how he feels that gardens are an immersive experience, how being in it makes you feel. And that's how I see, the experience of being in a garden as well, personally. And I've heard a lot of other people's stories. And how have you, through your life of creativity and composing, and how have you seen that outwork through your work in garden?
So when I was at the VCA, there was an advertisement for a gardener at a garden in Brighton. And I thought it was a really weird place to look for a gardener at an arts college. You know, why not ask at Burnley or, you know, it's pretty strange. Anyway, I was pretty sure that I was one of the only people there that was gardening. So I thought that ad must be for me.
Yeah.
So I, called them up, and I ended up working at this garden, and it ended up being an amazing garden in Brighton. It was over an acre. It was, full of hedges and topiary and perennial gardens and all this interesting designs that I hadn't really seen before, because it was very different to the gardens up in the Dandenong Ranges. It turns out that this lady, she didn't want a gardener, she wanted an artist. She wanted someone who not necessarily knew a huge amount about gardening, but she was willing to train and sort of direct to how she wanted things. So if I didn't do music and art, then, I wouldn't have gotten that job. I wouldn't have found about it. And I wouldn't have learnt everything that I learnt at that job. And I probably may not even be where I am today. So it's funny just how everything, one thing leads to another, how you just have to take little opportunities when they come along. Yeah.
That next step.
Yeah. She wanted an artist. She really enjoyed art in the garden, and she taught me a lot about gardening, which was really, really valuable for me at the time, just about how to prune and how to fertilise and just all those gardening things that I hadn't learnt before, because, up on the hill it's quite laborious. So it's less looking after plants and more just maintenance. Like big gardens up here, dealing with lots of leaves, lots of blackberries, lots of, mowing and slashing, and, there's lots of other things that maybe you don't get down in Brighton. So it was a very different experience, but it was very valuable.
It sounds like it's quite a craft that you learnt too, isn't it? You said there's the maintenance, but then there's also the nurturing and caring for plants. In the industry, from your experience, is there still that train of thought of like, we're just here and we just do the hedges and we just mow whatever needs to be done?
Yeah, I think you get a whole range up here, which is why I like working up here so much, because the gardens are so varied. You do get some of those really nice manicured gardens, and then you also just get real traditional hills, kind of bushy gardens, and I like working in both of them. We have a team now, and it's great to be able to work in all sorts of gardens. We don't tend to discriminate too much based on what the garden looks like, because, we do enjoy, working on both sides. But I think you're right. I think, some, like you say, in the industry, some people would be more just about maintenance, and then some people do look a bit more creatively as well. Yeah. And I like to look a bit more creatively where I can. Yeah, especially if the, customer allows us to get a bit creative in the garden. That's always really nice. Whereas some people are probably a bit more strict about what we would do in their garden, or they like to oversee it, or they like to make sure we're just doing the things that they want to do. And in those moments, you just sort of do as you're told.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that before, because just being a home gardener, you just go and you do what needs to be done, or you just accept what you can't do. But I suppose if you're paying for someone, there's that expectation of, your client would have the expectation of, this is what I want to achieve and this is like how it should look. So yeah, that must be hard, like juggling that.
Yeah. Well, what's hard is that everyone's different.
Okay.
So you have to kind of know how people want their gardens looked after. And some people have different ideas on what's a weed and what's not a weed. Right. What gets kept in the garden, what doesn't get kept in the garden. Some people want things pruned a certain way. Some people don't want something touched. And you just have to know all these. And sometimes you make mistakes. You just learn from that. And, we have job notes on every single job. And if there's anything specific like that, I always make sure those are on the job notes, because when the guys go there, they need to know not to pull out the Montbrisa because that customer likes the Montbrisa, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating. So people who pay to have garden maintenance services, I've recently become one of those people in the last few years, because you've come, this is how we met, you've come and, you trimmed the hedge. We have this big, large pitosterum hedge at the back of our house. And I naively at the time thought, I've tried to maintain it myself, but it is a very tall hedge. We don't have the right equipment. I don't think I really understood the value of investing in getting someone to help with the maintenance at home. What things have you heard back from your customers about the value that you provide as someone who cares for people's gardens?
Yeah, so this one customer I do, she's openly said that if we weren't maintaining her garden, that she would sell.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she would sell. She's an older lady, and there's probably a couple like that, to be honest, because they can't do it all themselves anymore. So if they didn't have us coming in to help with their garden and maintain, and they would have to downsize. And sometimes that's a hard thing to do when it's a family home and they've been there for 50 years. I think I know what you mean. Like, there's we're about to start a new job in Sherbrooke, and I was talking to her about it because she's done it herself forever, and we were talking about how it must feel a little bit daunting getting a garden maintenance person to come in and help with the garden when they've done it themselves forever. And yeah, it was a nice conversation actually, but she's going to really value having us come in because it means that they can do what they want to do in the garden, and we can do maybe some of the things that they don't want to do so much. And I think it, frees up time. It also inspires people to get into the garden themselves a bit more too.
Right.
If we've come in and done a chunk of the garden, it's actually inspiring for them to then go out and do a bit more themselves. Or some people only come out in the garden when we're there to kind of work alongside us. And if we didn't go, then they probably wouldn't really get out and do it that much.
Oh, that's awesome.
They might walk around the garden and see what we're doing, or just have discussions about the garden and talk about the plants. And yeah, I think the value is different for everybody, but for sure some people extremely value it.
Yeah, because I know, as you get older, and like for me, I've got a dodgy shoulder, or some people it's the back, or, just as you age, you aren't as able-bodied. And gardening helps with that. But it might not even be age. It might be, disability or, if you're working full time, some people I've heard, friends of mine, they're like, I don't want to be outside in the garden all weekend. Like, I love gardens.
Yeah.
But yeah, that maintaining it yourself can be quite overwhelming. And then if you miss a week, then the weeds keep growing, and then it gets even more overwhelming. So yeah, I really see the benefit of the service that people like yourself provide, and how awesome that people get even more inspired to get out when, you've done such a large chunk of what you do. I know it's actually inspiring for me when I see your posts on Instagram and when you've done the hedges, or you're like, this is what we're working on this week. And I'm like, oh, I better get out and do mine, because it's so good to have those visual reminders, I think. Yeah. So that's really cool. Talking about hedges and topiary, and understanding now that that's something you loved in childhood, I saw recently you went overseas on a really big trip. It was around Europe, I think. And you went to some amazing famous gardens and some quite intricate hedges and that. Could you describe some of your experiences and the gardens you visited over there and your inspiration?
Yeah, so we visited many gardens through England and France mainly, and Italy a bit too. We saw some gardens that were just, been on my bucket list to see forever, which was, just amazing. Because I wanted to see really old gardens.
Okay.
I wanted to see old hedges and old topiary, like hundreds of years old, that you couldn't really get here. And I was just, amazed at how beautiful they were, and just the age of some of these hedges was just incredible.
How old would they have been? Like older than Australia, like, you know, since it was founded or something?
Well, some of the, like the yew hedges and, you know, large topiary shapes, some of them were planted in the late 1600s.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they're still there.
They're still there.
Being maintained into the shape.
Yep. And they get trimmed with, you know, they get up there with cherry pickers and that because they're very large. They're very, very, very big. So, yeah, that was fascinating. Really, really fascinating. I really learnt how harsh the Australian conditions are,
right?
I think, when I was over there. Because being over there in summer was so much different to being here in summer. And it was, I've always heard that the Australian conditions are tough for the gardens and the plants. But when you experience it and the contrast, because a lot of what we plant here, you know, is some of the same plants that you'd have over there as well. And yeah, just that difference was quite amazing. And you sort of understand why sometimes over here some of the plants struggle and they get sunburn and they wilt and some die, and it's completely understandable because you'd have a day here that's 40 degrees and the next day it's 20.
Yeah.
And then you get strong winds and all the rest of it. It is much harsher. Whereas over there, I don't know, just the temperature was just much more stable, and it just felt like the plants were so much happier.
You could feel that while you're around them.
You could just feel it.
You can, I suppose you observe it too, because what you're used to seeing over here.
Yeah.
And then looking at the difference and going, is that the same plant? And we do have quite extremes now, don't we, in our weather patterns, especially this year. Yeah, I know with some of mine as well, like you look at them and you're like, oh, I'm not looking after you. But then you think about how the weather's been and you're like, I don't know that I could have done anything
to
stop them. They're just reacting to their environment, aren't they?
Yeah. And the environment is massive. Like even if you water very regularly, it doesn't beat just having rain. You know, even if you just water, if you have just a few days of nice rain, you just see the difference.
It's something else, isn't it?
It's something else,
everyone always comments online, you know, as soon as there's been rain, they're like, oh my gosh, look at the garden. It just is so much more lush. And that's so true.
Yeah. But yeah, overseas, I just, loved all the hedges and topiary and all the plants that they use. And it was inspiring, but at the same time, a lot of what I was looking at was quite large scale chateaus and, you know, it's probably not something that I could put in my own garden. And, you know, they often have like 10 full-time gardeners working on these sort of properties. So it is pretty next level, but it was fascinating to see. Yeah. Yeah,
especially the history and how long it's been kept for. France is they have that traditional, very sharp type of topiary, don't they? Like edging and...
Yes. But one of my favourite gardens was, I think it was Chateau de la Ballou. What I liked about that, there was a contrast. So you had areas of that, you know, those classic French parterres with all the, you know, symmetry and that. But they also had areas which were a little bit more like up here, where they had lots of large trees and, you know, beautiful underplantings, and they still had topiary kind of mixed in with it, but it felt a bit more lush and a bit more mixed. And I really, really liked that. And even behind the French parterre was all these Nawaki Japanese style pines, which they get pruned. And just the contrast between that and the French parterre was really interesting.
What's the difference between Japanese topiary and European topiary?
So Japanese, they often will prune in layers, and they kind of make it look like a organic tree still.
Okay.
It's pruned, but it's kind of looks a bit more natural, whereas European topiary is quite, you know, you might get the perfect sphere or the squares,
shapes.
The cubes, the cones, whatever you like. You know, they're quite symmetric in the way they prune, whereas it's a bit more organic in Japan. And that's what I like, that style, and I try and bring that into gardens as well. You know, I don't like trying to create just the perfect sphere. I would always like a bit more of a mushroomy shape or like a flatter top.
That's a great way to describe it. Yep.
I just find it just looks somehow more natural and just flows through the garden a bit more. Where I find like a perfect sphere is a bit more, I don't know, it just doesn't look as natural and doesn't flow in the garden as much.
You've got some of that Japanese topiary in your front yard, don't you?
Yeah. So I've trained them for about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they were just a scraggly row of bushes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're luma myrtles.
Okay.
And, it's taken me ages to, prune them back and, selectively take out branches that were maybe competing with the other ones. So you sort of thin them out so each little layer has space. And then you can just keep pruning and trimming and creating the shapes as they evolve. And the good thing is you can cut them back really hard and they still grow back again. So they're the perfect specimen to do it on. But yeah, it's been about 10 years in the making.
And they look fabulous.
They do, but they're always evolving.
Okay.
That's the best thing about them and about topiary in general is it's never finished. Nothing's ever finished. There's always a little layer that you're working on or letting something grow or training something in a certain way, maybe with rope just to pull branches away from other ones or that sort of thing. So it's always a work in progress and it evolves over time and it ages over time.
Yeah. Talking about your garden, is there a sentimental plant here at home that when you see it, it reminds you of a special memory or has special meaning to it?
Well, this block is quite new really because it got sort of flattened, after it was... but the remaining things here, of course, the chestnuts.
Okay, yeah.
So I'd say they're quite sentimental, given what we spoke about before.
Yeah.
I find the camellias are very sentimental, especially the sasanquas when they flower and the scent of them. I find that really nostalgic for some reason. I can't really think back why. I think it's just growing up with them because they were everywhere at mum and dad's. Just the scent of the sasanquas, I just love it. And it just reminds me of autumn. It reminds me of coming into winter. It's something that's really fresh on the other side of summer. It reminds me of, the change of seasons. I'd say that's a very sentimental scent, very sentimental plant. Yeah.
Yeah. I love how it's the scent with the plant that reminds you. It's not just the visual. That's so awesome.
Yeah. And I used to climb them, as a kid as well. Maybe that's what it is. I used to climb them and get up in them because I liked climbing trees.
Yeah. That's so good. I love that. Thinking of home gardens as someone who's a home gardener, and for those of us maintaining our own gardens at home, what's one technique that you think more home gardeners should adopt?
So if you're talking practically, I would like to see more home gardeners mow their lawns regularly.
I love it.
And whippersnip the edges.
Oh, yes. Tell us more.
Especially those that have kikuyu grass, because that just is just rampant and you just see that all over the suburbs, just getting up into plants and trees and gardens and up power poles and all this sort of thing. I think if everyone put a bit more effort into controlling that grass, I think that would be a really good thing for society. Talking more holistically, I think everyone should try and grow some sort of food for their kitchen. And it's not that hard to, even just to grow some herbs. I feel like herbs are so expensive to buy. When you go and buy herbs, it's actually crazy. When you realise how easy it is to grow herbs yourself, you will think, why have I been buying herbs all this time?
Yeah, it's like $5 and you get 3 tiny little shoots.
Exactly. And you use one stem of it in the meal and the rest of it just dries out in the fridge and then it's in the bin.
It's so true.
So I feel like everyone should at least just grow some herbs.
Oh, I'm with you on that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Rosemary, thyme, oregano, parsley. Yeah. They tend to just sort of kick along for a long time. It's worth it.
And they can grow in pots too,
They can grow
which
in
is
pots,
what I love.
yeah.
You don't have to have a spot that's, you just chuck them in some pots, put them at the back door,
Yep.
collect the seeds in autumn or when they go to seed,
Yep.
and then just keep the process going.
Yeah.
I love it.
Or sometimes they'll just self-seed.
Yep.
As well. You don't even have to worry. Parsley will just probably pop up themselves anyway.
Yeah.
And I think putting them close to your kitchen is the way to go. I've seen some properties with veggie gardens which are ages away from their house. And I just think there's no way they're going out there to collect a bit of rosemary. They'll just go without or whatever. So trying to bring food close to your kitchen, veggie gardens, planter boxes, whatever, close to the kitchen is, it's really beneficial.
Yeah,
And it'll change your life in cooking.
Yeah, it will. Well, I've got some quick fire questions to close us off with. First one, hand shears or power tools? What do you prefer? Pick one.
Okay, if I had to pick one, for me, I used to always only use hand shears because I loved hand shears, and especially good quality ones. I've got a lot of Japanese hand shears, and when I first started gardening, that's all I used. And I used to do some pretty big hedges just with hand shears, and I loved the finish because they trim they cut so clean, and the finish on the hedge is something different. It's really, really clean. All the leaves are just cut nicely, and these days we use a lot more power tools, and it's quicker and more productive in the garden, but you do notice the difference. If you actually made me pick one that I was going to use at home forever, I would pick hand shears because I've got lots of nice hand shears that I couldn't live without.
I think that's the key, isn't it? The really good quality. Yeah.
Yes.
And looking after them.
Yes, you have to look after them and get some really good ones.
Yeah, not leave them out in the garden like I always do. Okay. All right. Is there a garden somewhere in the world that you're still hoping to go and visit?
The Adachi Museum in Japan, I would love to visit. I have been to Japan, but I didn't quite get there. It was a little bit off the beat. That is just, that's stunning. The garden is it's like a gallery. So you can view the garden from inside a building.
Oh, wow.
With big windows, and each window is like a piece of art, on your wall.
I love it. Yeah.
And I would love to visit that. Beautiful, large azalea blobs. Love it.
That sounds great. I'll have to look that one up. Okay, in one word or sentence, how does your garden make you feel when you're out in it?
I find it peaceful and meditative when I can get out there and actually just poke around the garden. And there's not often enough time for that. But when you get into that headspace of just being in the garden, just doing some simple things even, it is really nice and a nice distraction from the busyness of, everything we do.
So when you're out in your garden, are you a podcast, music, or no headphones on type of person?
Well, probably 2 or 3 years ago, I would have just been nothing. I didn't have any sound. But now I've discovered Apple AirPods and the noise cancelling ones, and I do love them, I must say. They're great for dampening the sound of your electric tools and that. And I like to listen to music. I also like to listen to podcasts. Just depends how I'm feeling on the day. Yeah, couldn't pick one or the other. I'd listen to both. Okay,
awesome. And lastly, one person you'd love to have a cuppa with and hear their garden stories.
Well, I'd like to have a cuppa with Jake Hobson from England. So he's the founder of Nawaki, who I still do, but buy a lot of garden tools from. He's probably 10 years ago, or probably more actually, but I got his book, which was The Art of Creative Pruning. And that was one of the things that got me into particularly the Japanese style of pruning and shaping. And when I found his store and started buying all his tools, that really changed my life. So I definitely owe a lot to him.
Mm-hmm.
I have visited Nowaki in the UK, but I haven't met Jake Hobson. So maybe one day I would like to. Yeah. And have a cuppa. Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, Hayden, thank you so much for being, well, this is officially the first podcast for The Sentimental Gardener.
Great.
And there's actually something we haven't had a chat about, but it's a special surprise, and that you actually have written the theme music for this podcast.
Yep.
So you're going to play for us, and I just want to say it's just been such an honour to have you create that music for me. And I think it just, is lovely to see that whole circle of, tying back into the gardening and the music. And it literally fills me with joy every time I hear it. So thank you so much for that gift. Thank you so much for joining me and listening today. I'm reminded of what Hayden said about Japanese-style pruning, how it's never truly finished, but always evolving. Our life stories work the same way, don't they? We prune here, shape there, and somehow find ourselves creating something both intentional and wonderfully unexpected. If you enjoyed this podcast, consider subscribing so you don't miss any new episodes. And until next time, may your garden, whatever form it takes, continue to nurture the stories that matter most to you.